On the morning of June 14, 1940, a chaotic and tragic scene was unfolding inside the aircraft hangars at Sartrouville, just northwest of Paris. The sound of distant artillery was growing louder, signaling the rapid advance of the Wehrmacht, but inside the factory the noise was of a different, more heartbreaking nature. It was the sound of sledgehammers striking wood and metal. French aviation workers, with tears in their eyes, were systematically destroying their own creations. Lined up in the assembly hall were dozens of fighter aircraft, sleek, modern, and nearly finished. They represented the very pinnacle of French aeronautical engineering, machines capable of speeds over 550 kilometers per hour, designed specifically to sweep the Luftwaffe from the skies. Yet these aircraft would never fire a shot in anger. They would never dive upon a Heinkel or dogfight a Messerschmitt. Instead, they were being smashed to pieces by the very hands that built them, in a desperate race to prevent them from falling into German hands intact. Of all the tragedies that befell the French aviation industry during that terrible summer, this was perhaps the most bitter, for the aircraft being destroyed was not an obsolete relic, but a machine that could have rivaled the Spitfire and arguably surpassed the Duotine Duo.520. It was the wooden wonder that arrived just a few weeks too late. It was the Arsenal VG-33. To understand the tragedy of Sartrouville, we must first look back to the political and industrial landscape of France in the mid-1930s. The nation was acutely aware of the growing threat across the Rhine, yet its aviation industry was fragmented, often inefficient, and technologically conservative. In an attempt to modernize and centralize military aircraft development, the French government established the Arsenal de l'Aéronautique around 1934. By 1936, following a wave of nationalization that swept through the French defense sector, Arsenal de l'Aéronautique moved into the former Breguet factory at Villers-Cotterêts. Dowded private manufacturers driven by profit margins and existing tooling, Arsenal was a state-run entity tasked with specialized research and the development of prototypes that could be produced rapidly using non-strategic materials. Leading this new state enterprise were two remarkable figures, General Director Michel Vernis and Chief Engineer Jean Gaultier. Their partnership would be immortalized in the designation of their aircraft, the V for Vernis and the G for Gaultier. Together, they sought to solve a critical problem facing the Armée de l'Air. If war came, France would need thousands of fighters, but the production of aluminium alloys was expensive and slow. The solution, they believed, lay in a return to organic materials, specifically wood. In November 1936, at the Paris Air Show, they unveiled a mock-up of their concept, the VG-30. It was a light fighter, constructed almost entirely of spruce and plywood. The logic was sound. In a total war scenario, skilled metal workers would be in short supply, but carpenters and cabinet makers would be plentiful. If a fighter could be built like furniture, it could be mass-produced in shadow factories away from the front lines. The Air Ministry was impressed, issuing the A.23 specification for a light fighter competition, while competitors like the Cadron Ki.714 also vied for the contract. The Arsenal design showed superior promise. The first flying prototype, the VG-30, took to the skies in October 1938. However, the original engine choice of Potes 12DC proved unreliable, forcing a switch to the Hispano-Suiza 12XCRs. Despite these teething troubles, the design evolved rapidly. The engineers refined the aerodynamics, smoothed the cowlings, and eventually arrived at the definitive model, the VG-33. The prototype VG-33 made its maiden flight on April 25, 1939, from Villers-Cotterêts. What took to the air that spring day was a masterpiece of aerodynamic efficiency. The aircraft was powered by a Hispano-Suiza 12Y31 liquid-cooled V12 engine, producing 860 horsepower. While this was significantly less power than the Daimler-Benz engines powering the German Messerschmitts, the VG-33 was exceptionally clean. Its semi-monocoque fuselage was built from molded plywood skins glued over spruce bulkheads, resulting in a surface finish far smoother than any riveted metal aircraft could hope to achieve. This low drag allowed the VG-33 to reach a top speed of 558 kilometers per hour at 5,200 meters. The armament was equally formidable for a light fighter. It boasted a 20mm Hispano-Suiza T.404 cannon firing through the propeller hub, backed up by four 7.5mm Mach 1934 machine guns in the wings. This gave it a punch comparable to the Duotine Duodart 520 and significantly heavier than the early Spitfires. On paper, the VG-33 was a triumph. It was faster than the Duodart 520, despite having a less powerful engine. It handled beautifully, with test pilots praising its responsiveness and stability. It was cheap to build, supposedly easy to manufacture, and relied on materials that France had in abundance. Or so they thought. As the clouds of war gathered in the summer of 1939, the French government placed an initial order for 220 aircraft. This was quickly increased, with expectations that the VG-33 would become a backbone of the fighter force alongside the DOT 520 and the American Curtiss Hawk. But, as is so often the case in aviation history, the gap between a successful prototype and a production machine is a chasm filled with unforeseen disasters. And for the VG-33, the disaster would be made of wood. The entire philosophy of the VG-33 rested on the availability of spruce. The designers had assumed that this wood, common in French forests, would be readily available. However, the specifications for aviation-grade spruce are exacting. The wood must be free of knots, perfectly grained, and seasoned to precise humidity levels. When mass production began at the SNCAN factory in Sartrouville, a horrifying realization dawned on the procurement officers. France did not have enough high-grade spruce. The reserves were critically low, hovering around 750 tons, barely enough for a few hundred airframes. Panic set in. The French government began frantically sourcing timber from abroad, looking to Romania, the United Kingdom, and Canada. But shipping timber takes time, and time was the one commodity France was rapidly running out of. These logistical bottlenecks caused agonizing delays. Orders had been placed in September 1939, right at the outbreak of hostilities. The first production aircraft was scheduled for delivery in January 1940. January came and went. Then February, then March. It wasn't until April 21st, 1940, less than 3 weeks before the German invasion, that the first production VG-33 finally took to the air. When the Wehrmacht launched their Blitzkrieg on May 10, 1940, the situation at Sartrouville was a picture of industrial frustration. The factory floor was full. Approximately 160 airframes were in various stages of assembly. Wings were being glued, fuselages were being molded, and engines were being mounted. But completed combat-ready aircraft were virtually non-existent. The chaos of the invasion only exacerbated the production problems. Supply lines were cut, workers were mobilized or fled, and the orderly flow of components turned into a trickle. By the time the German spearheads were threatening Paris in early June, only 19 VG-33s had been fully completed. Of these, the French Air Force, the Armée de l'Air, had only officially taken 7 onto their registry. There is a profound sense of irony in these numbers. The aircraft that was designed to be mass-produced by unskilled labor in shadow factories failed because the raw materials could not be sourced in time. Meanwhile, the complex metal-skinned DOT 520s were rolling off the lines in Toulouse, albeit slowly. The operational history of the VG-33 is therefore brief and shrouded in the fog of war. It never equipped a full squadron. It never had the chance to fly a coordinated intercept mission against a Heinkel formation. However, a handful of these wooden fighters did see the light of day. In the desperate final weeks of the campaign, an ad hoc unit known as GCI-55 was formed at Bordeaux-Mérignac Airfield between June 17th and June 24th. This unit was a collection of whatever pilots and machines could be scraped together to cover the retreat. Records indicate that at least 2 VG-33s were operated by GCI-55 during this week. Did they see combat? The records are fragmentary. Some accounts suggest they flew combat air patrols over Bordeaux, perhaps chasing off Italian bombers or German reconnaissance planes, but there are no confirmed kill claims attributed to a VG-33. They were ghosts, appearing briefly in the skies over a collapsing nation before vanishing into history. While the handful of operational aircraft were retreating to the south, the situation at the factory in Sartrouville had reached its terminal phase. On June 14th, as German troops entered Paris, the order was given to deny the enemy the production lines. This brings us back to the scene of the workers with sledgehammers. More than 20 nearly complete airframes were smashed on the assembly jigs. It was an act of sabotage born of necessity. but one can only imagine the psychological toll it took on the men who had spent months crafting these sophisticated machines. Despite their efforts, the Germans captured the factory and several intact examples. Approximately 4 or 5 VG-33s fell into Luftwaffe hands. Curious to evaluate this French wooden fighter, the Germans sent at least one example, coded 3+5, to the Luftwaffe test center at Exile. The German evaluation of the VG-33 is fascinating because it confirms what the French designers had claimed. The Luftwaffe test pilots found the aircraft to be exceptionally agile. In terms of maneuverability and low-altitude speed, it was considered superior to the standard Messerschmitt Bf 109E. However, the Germans also noted its limitations. The Hispano-Suiza engine, while reliable, lacked the raw power of the Daimler-Benz. Above 5,000 meters, the Benz 109's performance superiority became undeniable. The VG-33 was a low-to-medium altitude dogfighter, not a high-altitude interceptor. Furthermore, the wooden construction, while aerodynamic, was viewed with some skepticism by German engineers regarding its long-term durability in field conditions, though they admitted the finish was superb. What makes the VG story even more compelling is that the VG-33 was merely the base model. Arsenal had already developed a series of variants that addressed the engine power issue, creating a tantalizing what-if scenario for aviation historians. First, there was the VG-34, which flew on January 20th, 1940. This variant was fitted with the Hispano-Suiza 12Y45 engine, featuring a better supercharger that boosted power to 910 horsepower. This seemingly small upgrade pushed the top speed to 575 kilometers per hour. Then came the VG-35, flown in February, and the highly refined VG-36, which took to the air on May 14, 1940, just 4 days after the invasion began. The VG-36 featured a redesigned radiator bath and a streamlined fuselage that made it look remarkably like a P-51 Mustang. With a 1,000 horsepower engine, it hit 590 kilometers per hour. But the ultimate evolution was the VG-39. This aircraft, which flew on May 3, 1940, was a beast. It was powered by the Hispano-Suiza 12Y89 TER engine, delivering 1,200 horsepower. To handle the torque, the structure was reinforced, and the armament was increased to 6 machine guns. In test flights, the VG-39 achieved a staggering 625 kilometers per hour. To put that into perspective, the VG-39 was faster than the Bf-109E, faster than the Spitfire Mark I, and significantly faster than the Devoitin D.520. It was a world-class fighter in every respect. But like its siblings, the VG-39 was doomed by timing. The sole prototype was flown south to Toulouse-Blagnac to escape the Germans, only to be destroyed by French personnel to prevent capture. Comparing the production VG-33 to its contemporaries reveals a capable, if slightly underpowered, machine against the Devoitin D.520, which is rightfully remembered as France's best fighter of the campaign. The VG-33 was actually the superior aerodynamic design. It achieved higher speeds with less horsepower, it climbed better, it turned tighter. Its only real disadvantage was its wooden construction, which made it more vulnerable to fire and structural damage from cannon shells, although arguably easier to repair in the field. Against the Bf-109E, the VG-33 would have been a dangerous opponent in a turning fight. The Messerschmitt had the advantage in climb rate and dive speed thanks to its fuel-injected engine, but a VG-33 pilot who dragged a German into a horizontal maneuvering fight would likely have come out on top. However, wars are not won by prototypes or flight test data. They are won by logistics and numbers, and in this regard, the Arsenal program was a catastrophic failure. The decision to rely on spruce without securing a strategic reserve of the material beforehand was a fatal oversight. Furthermore, the industrial mobilization of France was simply too slow. By the time the assembly lines at Sartrouville and the planned secondary lines at the Michelin factory in Clermont-Ferrand were ready to spool up, the Wehrmacht was already crossing the Meuse. We must also consider the chaos of the evacuation. As the front collapsed, the few completed VG-33s were flown from airfield to airfield, often by pilots who had never sat in the cockpit before. There were no manuals, no spare parts, and no ground crews trained to maintain the wooden airframes. That they flew at all is a testament to the docile handling characteristics Venice and Gaultier had designed into the machine. Following the armistice in June 1940, the story of the VG-33 comes to an abrupt and silent halt. The VG government continued some low-level development of the airframe, proposing increasingly radical variants with jet engines or tandem propellers, but none of these left the drawing board. The surviving airframes captured by Germany eventually disappeared. They were likely flown until they broke or were scrapped for their valuable instruments and engines. Today, not a single original Arsenal VG-33 exists. There are no museum pieces to visit in Le Bourget, no dusty survivors hidden in barns. The entire production run, the prototypes, the tooling, all of it was erased. For decades, the VG-33 remained a footnote known only to serious aviation historians and model makers. It was the forgotten fighter, overshadowed by the Do. 520 and the valiant but outclassed Moran Solcio 406. However, the story does not end in 1940. In 2016, a group of dedicated enthusiasts decided that this chapter of French history deserved to be reopened. At the airfield of Vinon-sur-Verdon in southeastern France, the Arsenal Sode Restoration Project was founded. Their goal is audacious: to build a brand new, full-scale, airworthy Arsenal VG-33 from scratch. Without a surviving airframe to copy, they have had to rely on original blueprints, photographs, and the reverse engineering of components. Using the same types of spruce and plywood that caused such logistical headaches in 1939, they are slowly resurrecting the wooden wonder. They have even secured an original Hispano-Suiza 12Y engine, the beating heart of the machine. It is a slow, painstaking process funded by passion and private donations, but it offers the hope that one day we might finally see a VG-33 in its natural element, banking over the French countryside, the sound of its V12 echoing a history that was almost lost. So, how should we assess the Arsenal VG-33? It is easy to look at the performance figures of the VG-39 variant and declare that France had the best fighter of the early war period. But that is a seductively simple view. An aircraft is more than its top speed. It is the sum of its production engineering, its supply chain, and its combat readiness. The VG-33 failed, not because of aerodynamics, but because of industrial strategy. It was a brilliant solution to a problem, the shortage of light alloys that created a new problem, the shortage of aviation-grade wood. It arrived just weeks too late to make a difference. Had the war started in 1941, or had the spruce been ordered in 1938, the Armée de l'Air might have fielded hundreds of these agile fighters. They would have formed a high-low mix with the Do. 520 that could have severely tested the Luftwaffe pilots over the Channel. Instead, the VG-33 remains a tragic symbol of the Battle of France. It represents the brilliance of French engineering, stifled by the paralysis of French bureaucracy. It is the plane that was smashed by sledgehammers to save it from the enemy, a masterpiece that died in the cradle, leaving us only to wonder what might have been.